"You have a camera in your office," the little girl whispered. "But it's not yours." Carter William froze. His hand hovered over the keyboard, the soft clatter of keystrokes dying mid-word. The afternoon sunlight spilled through the tall windows behind him, casting warm light over polished walnut shelves and the flickering blue of his workstation. But none of that warmth touched the space between them, now not after those words. He turned slowly, as if the air had thickened around him. Maya stood there, half hidden in the doorway, her small fingers gripping the edge of the mahogany desk like it was the only thing anchoring her. "Maya?" His voice was careful, too careful. The 9-year-old looked up at him, dark eyes wide, shoulders drawn in, and stepped closer. Her sneakers barely made a sound on the thick rug. Her voice dropped lower as she leaned in, close enough that he could feel her breath warm against his ear. "It's behind the painting," she said. "The one Miss Vanessa brought." He blinked. In the 6 months since the accident took her parent, she's brother and sister-in-law, Maya had hardly spoken more than a sentence at a time. She watched. She listened. She kept to herself like a shadow pressed against the wall. Carter had given her everything. The best schools, a private therapist, a room full of soft lights and books and gadgets. But he hadn't given her this. He hadn't earned this kind of voice from her. "What do you mean, a camera?" he asked. Maya glanced at the painting in question, a muted abstract of a city skyline, hanging just above his bookcase. It was tasteful, unobtrusive. He remembered when Vanessa had brought it over, her smile as she teased him about needing a little softness in his workspace. "I saw it blink at night," Maya said, "and I scanned it. The signal doesn't match any of your devices." Carter's stomach tensed. "Scanned it?" She nodded. "I used my tablet. I ran a network trace when I couldn't sleep." He leaned back slowly in his chair, regarding her in silence. Mayatha, quiet, observant little girl who barely spoke to adults, unless Prest had just told him something no adult in his security team had picked up on. And she wasn't even supposed to be in here. "Maya, how long have you known?" "Since last week." Her voice was small but steady. "But I wasn't sure you'd believe me." Carter's throat tightened. Vanessa had hung that painting 4 weeks ago. She'd said it was a gift to celebrate his deal with Homeland Security. She'd kissed him just beneath it, whispered that she was proud of him. They'd eaten wine-poached salmon while it watched silently from the wall. He stood. With slow, deliberate steps, he crossed the room and lifted the canvas from its hooks. It came away easily, revealing smooth drywalling just below the top molding, a black circle no bigger than a pencil eraser, a lens, a hidden, live camera. His jaw locked. "Maya, go wait outside for a minute," he said quietly. "Number." The firmness in her voice stopped him. She wasn't being disobedient, she was being brave. She was still holding on to something, information, maybe, or fear. Either way, she wasn't going anywhere. He gave a slow nod and motioned her closer. "All right, sit." Maya perched on the edge of the leather guest chair, hands folded in her lap. She didn't fidget, didn't squirm, just looked at him with a gaze far older than any child should wear. "I checked the signal history. It started right after Vanessa hung the painting," she said. "But now there are others, smaller ones, in the living room, in the den. I think someone's listening to you." Carter felt a chill crawl up the back of his neck. He stared at the wall where the painting had been, his mind racing through the past month, Vanessa's sudden interest in his schedule, the way she lingered near his desk, her insistence on tidying up his office herself, her habit of arriving with coffee just when he needed it, always at the perfect moment. The coincidences had been too perfect, and now they weren't coincidences at all. Maya waited, quietly, watching his face. He turned to her. "You've been carrying this alone?" She nodded once. He let out a breath, long and unsteady. "I believe you," he said. She blinked. It was the first time she looked uncertain. "You do?" "I should have believed you the first time you said it." The corners of her mouth didn't move, but her shoulders softened just a little, and that said everything. Carter reached for the painting again. The camera sat embedded in the frame's curve, so small it could have been decorative. But it wasn't decorative. It was deliberate. It was betrayal. And if Vanessa planted one, how many more were hidden? "Maya," he said, voice low, "I want you to keep watching, but only if you feel safe. Can you do that?" She nodded. He rested a hand gently on her shoulder. "From now on, we do this together. No more secrets. She looked up at him, and for the first time since she'd arrived in his home, she smiled. Not the kind of smile that meant she was being polite. The kind that meant someone was finally listening. And Carter, now fully alert and furious in a way he hadn't felt in years, turned toward his desk and opened a new, secure terminal. Vanessa would be home soon. And this time, he'd be the one watching. If you felt that shift, if Maya's quiet courage and Carter's rising fury stirred something in you, then don't leave just yet. Hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments. What would you do if your own home was listening in? Because this story, it's only just beginning. The wind outside Carter's estate shifted, tugging at the tall trees that lined the perimeter like sentries. Inside, the air had grown still dense with unspoken understanding and something colder, deeper. The end of illusion. Vanessa would be home in 27 minutes. Carter knew this because her routine was precise. She always left her boutique consulting firm at 5:35 p.m., stopped for a decaf soy latte from the cafe 2 blocks over, and arrived back at the house at 6:12. Give or take a minute. She would smile, hang her coat on the antique hook she insisted on installing near the front door, and come to find him, always with a casual, "I missed you," and a kiss that tasted like lavender and control. He stared at the painting now resting on the floor, frame slightly cracked from where he had wrenched it down. The camera lens stared back at him, lifeless yet damning. Maya sat on the far end of the couch, her legs tucked under her, tablet open in her lap. Her tiny fingers swiped quickly across the screen, bringing up signals Carter's system hadn't flagged. Not once. "How many?" he asked without looking up. "5 that don't belong," she replied. 2 in your office, 1 in the living room, 1 in the guest bedroom, and, she hesitated, 1 in your master suite. Carter inhaled slowly through his nose. It wasn't anger, not yet. Anger was still an emotional luxury. This was calculation, cool and precise. "You've seen them all transmitting?" "Yes. I mapped their activity. Most of them are quiet during the day, but between midnight and 4 a.m., they all go active for short bursts. Which means someone's collecting data in intervals," Carter muttered. "Batch transmitting, trying to stay off grid crawlers." He rubbed a hand over his jaw. That kind of protocol wasn't amateur work. This wasn't some private eye hired by a jealous ex or a tabloid leak. This was targeted, high-level surveillance, the kind he'd designed his entire company to prevent. And it was happening under his roof. He rose from the desk and crossed to the tall oak cabinet on the wall. With a flick of his fingerprint and a silent swipe on the keypad, the panel slid open to reveal a matte black server tower humming gently against the wood. He pulled a secondary cable, connecting Maya's tablet directly into the diagnostic port. "You're in," he said. Maya looked up, startled. "You're giving me access?" "I trust you," he replied. "Apparently more than I trust my own damn firewall." Her eyes widened. But she didn't smile this time. She just nodded and got to work. While she traced signal paths through layers of digital noise, Carter moved back to his desk and accessed the central security dashboard. Every camera, every mic, every access log since the system's installation came up like a digital nervous system. Vanessa had access limited, of course, but that hadn't stopped her from supplementing it. He flipped through motion logs. Several entries stood out, movements triggered in rooms no one should have entered. Guest bedroom on Wednesday, living room at 3 a.m. last Sunday, and 1 log with no source signature at all. Blank. Whoever had placed these devices didn't just want to spy on him. They wanted to do it without leaving fingerprints. A knock at the door startled both of them. "Josephine." Carter exhaled and opened the door to his longtime housekeeper and family friend. Her silver-gray bun was tight, her pressed blouse spotless, but her eyes narrowed immediately when she saw his face. "Something's wrong," she said, not asking. "Yes," Carter replied. He gestured for her to come inside, and quietly closed the door behind her. Maya didn't even look up as Josephine entered. She was too deep in code, face aglow with reflected blue light. Carter leaned in and spoke low. "Vanessa may have planted surveillance devices. Maya found them." Josephine blinked once. "Where?" "Everywhere." Her face hardened. "I knew something felt off. She's always lingering, always knows too much, and she talks to that CFO of yours too often." Carter turned sharply. "Miles?" Josephine nodded. "He came by unannounced twice last week when you were out. Said he was checking paperwork. Vanessa acted like it was nothing, but I caught them whispering in the den. She didn't know I was listening. Carter's pulse ticked up. Miles Rennis' right hand, his best friend since MIT. Could he have? He didn't finish the thought. "Thank you for telling me," he said. "I need you to do something for me. Anything. When Vanessa gets here, act normal. Like we know nothing." Josephine's mouth tightened. "I've been playing polite longer than she's been alive, son. I can pretend just fine." Carter gave a brief nod. Maya's voice cut through the room. "I found something." Both adults turned. "There's a signal hub. All the devices route to it. But it's not here," she said. "It's off-site, somewhere in downtown Austin." Carter moved beside her and looked at the map she'd generated. A red pulse blinked on a building address tied to a small private storage firm with no obvious affiliation. "Whoever's behind this is good," Maya murmured. "They don't transmit constantly. It's like they're doing packet shadows, slivers of data, hard to trace." "And yet you traced it," Carter said. She shrugged. "I learned from watching you." Before he could answer, the front door opened and closed softly. Footsteps. He could hear her laugh float down the hall, familiar, warm, rehearsed. Carter closed the server panel in a smooth motion and locked the tablet inside a drawer with Maya's quick cooperation. Josephine straightened her skirt and gave Maya a brief nod before heading back to the main hall, her expression once again composed. "Carter?" Vanessa's voice called. "Where are you, babe?" "In the office," he said, walking toward the doorway. Maya slipped quietly to the side hallway just as Vanessa appeared, arms full with takeout bags and a bottle of wine peeking out of her purse. "There's my genius," she said, leaning in to kiss his cheek. He let her. She looked around. "Smells like server heat in here. You working hard or hardly working?" He smiled tightly. "Just running diagnostics. A few glitches in the system." Vanessa paused, eyes scanning the room with that trademark playful curiosity. "Anything serious?" "Not really," he said, "but I'll probably do a full reset later. Need any help?" "No," he replied. "You've helped enough." She laughed. "Well, if I didn't know better, I'd think that sounded pointed." He didn't answer. She placed the food down and stretched, the movement slow and deliberate. Comfortable. At home. Tout confortable. He watched her for another long beat, noticing the way she slid her hand along the edge of his desk right above the drawer that now held the only thing she didn't want him to see. "We should eat before it gets cold," she said, turning. "I'll be out in a bit," he replied. She blew him a kiss and walked off, humming a tune that didn't reach her eyes. When the door closed behind her, Carter sat down slowly and pressed his hands together. His temple throbbed. He didn't want this to be true, but it was. He could feel it beneath her affection, her perfect timing, her feigned sweetness. She was watching him, using him, and she wasn't working alone. Behind him, Maya stepped out of the shadowed hallway. "Uncle Carter?" she asked. He turned. "Can I help with the reset later?" He stared at her for a moment, then nodded. "You already are." The house had gone still again, the kind of quiet that only came after a storm or just before one. Carter sat in the darkened office long after Vanessa had gone upstairs for her nightly bath. The scent of her lavender body oil still lingered faintly in the air, as if even her presence left strategic residue. The wine had remained untouched on the kitchen counter. The food she brought had gone cold. Neither he nor Maya had the appetite to eat after what they knew now, and what they still didn't. Maya sat cross-legged on the floor by the server cabinet, a blanket wrapped around her small shoulders, the glow of a secondary monitor reflecting off her round glasses. Her fingers flew over the keyboard, silent and focused, analyzing packets Carter wouldn't have expected even a junior engineer to notice. At some point, Josephine brought them both mugs of hot chamomile tea. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. The look she gave Carter as she closed the office door said more than words. "I've seen women like her before. You're not crazy. Keep going." Carter leaned back in his chair and studied the ceiling. He'd been trained to detect patterns, dissect threats, build defenses tighter than a nuclear vault, and still, Vanessa had gotten through. She had used him. Used this home. Used Maya. He clenched his fists. "Got something," Maya said, her voice low, but charged with energy. He wheeled his chair over beside her. "Show me." I mapped her cloud activity. Not her personal account, she's too smart for that. But the devices she planted are syncing to a private server, hosted offshore, masked behind a shell company in the Caymans. Maya clicked through tabs. Here's the IP trace. I ran it against known activity logs. She brought up a dataset Carter knew well. Prototype access logs from his own system blueprints, algorithm test results, beta encryption routines. This is yours, she said. And this, she tapped another tab, is where it ends up. Carter stared at the second screen. He recognized the formatting. It was Orion Tech's system interface. Proprietary, internal, confidential. The watermark in the corner was unmistakable. Vanessa wasn't freelancing. She was an agent, a corporate spy. She was working for his greatest competitor. How the hell, he muttered. I built firewalls to stop nation-states. And she? Maya glanced up, her voice quieter. She got in because you trusted her, not because she outcoded you. Carter didn't respond. The truth sat heavy in his chest. She was right. The breach hadn't come through the network. It had come through the heart. Is Miles involved? He asked, almost afraid of the answer. Maya hesitated, then pulled up a video file. It's grainy, she said, but I think it's enough. The footage was time-stamped 3 nights ago. It showed the living room, angled slightly from the bookshelf a view Carter didn't remember authorizing. Vanessa walked in first, carrying a thin silver case. Moments later, Miles followed, glancing over his shoulder like a man not quite convinced he was alone. In the video, Vanessa placed the case on the table, opened it, and extracted a USB drive. Miles said something no audio, but his posture said everything. Confident, familiar, impatient. She handed him the drive, and he nodded before tucking it into his blazer. Then they embraced. Not like friends. Like co-conspirators. Carter leaned back, swallowing hard. I need air, he said. He stepped out onto the back deck, the cold biting more than he expected. The sky was clear stars cutting through the dark like sharpened pins. The pool lights shimmered gently, untouched. 6 months ago, he'd adopted Maya, hoping to give her safety, stability, something that resembled a home, but she had ended up protecting him, watching over him while he played the role of guardian. He heard the sliding door behind him. Uncle Carter? Maya's voice was small. He turned. You should be sleeping. She came out barefoot, pulling the blanket tighter. I couldn't. He crouched and rested a hand on her shoulder. I'm sorry, he said softly. You shouldn't have to carry this. I wanted to tell you sooner. Her voice cracked. But I didn't want you to think I was trying to ruin things. He frowned. Why would you think that? Because she makes you happy. You smile when she's here. You laugh. And I thought, maybe if I told you, you'd think I was trying to break that. Carter closed his eyes. The pain that pierced through him wasn't from betrayal. It was from realizing that a 9-year-old had silenced herself for his comfort. She'd chosen his feelings over her own safety. No one should ever ask you to do that, he said, pulling her into a hug. Least of all me. Maya didn't say anything for a moment. Then, muffled against his shoulder, she asked, So what now? He pulled back and looked her square in the eyes. Now we flipped the game. They went back inside, both of them colder, but clearer. Carter opened a hidden drawer in his office desk and pulled out a phone secure, unregistered, and used only for emergencies. He typed a number from memory. Read, he said when the line clicked. I need you. The voice on the other end was clipped. Ex-military. Give me a time and a location. Tonight. Here. Quiet surveillance. No uniforms. Understood. He hung up. Maya tilted her head. Who's Reed? Old friend. Private security. He's handled dirty corporate takedowns before. Carter's voice was low, measured. We'll give Vanessa and Miles what they want. Let them think they're getting everything they came for, but we're going to control what they take. Maya's eyes lit with understanding. You want to feed them false data. Exactly. And while they're celebrating, we'll be recording everything. He brought up the company's prototype interface and started crafting fake build logs, misleading algorithm structures, and backdoor-laced software packages. Maya helped, inserting trigger codes that would log every machine accessing the files. As they worked, Josephine returned, carrying a metal tin of oatmeal cookies and a fresh mug of cocoa. You two look like you're preparing for war, she said, setting the tin down. We are, Carter replied. She didn't flinch. just poured the cocoa, handed Maya a cookie, and said, "Well then, you'll need sugar." It was almost dawn when Carter finished building the decoy server. Maya had long since nodded off in the armchair, her tablet still resting against her chest. He looked over at her. A blanket draped over her small frame, and something inside him shifted. This wasn't just about stopping Vanessa or protecting trade secrets. This was about protecting the only person who had protected him when he wasn't looking, and making damn sure the people who violated that, who tried to use this family, this home, as a battlefield, never got another chance. He dimmed the lights, glanced once more at the quiet hallway upstairs where Vanessa still slept, and whispered to the silence, "You have no idea who you messed with." Morning would come soon, and with it, the beginning of the end. The sun rose behind a thick veil of winter clouds, casting the entire estate in muted gray. Vanessa padded into the kitchen wearing Carter's navy robe, humming softly to herself as if the night before hadn't shattered the walls around her. She poured coffee, added almond milk, always kept it stocked for her, and sat at the island, scrolling through her phone like any other fiancé starting her morning. But Carter saw it now. The controlled movements, the slightly too casual poses, the way she positioned herself in front of the window, just in line with one of the newly discovered hidden cameras. Every gesture was performance. He entered the kitchen without a word, dressed in a simple charcoal sweater and jeans, his expression unreadable. "Morning, love," Vanessa said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Sleep okay?" "Eventually," Carter said, opening the fridge. "You seemed tense last night." She sipped her coffee. "Everything all right at work?" "Just thinking through a few problems," he said evenly. "But I think I've got a solution now." Her smile sharpened just a little, as if sensing a shift. "Good. I'd hate for anything to ruin the holidays." She leaned in to kiss him, but Carter turned slightly, offering only his cheek. She hesitated just for a blink and then recovered with a laugh. "Grumpy morning man," noted. Carter checked his watch. "I'll be heading into the city for a few meetings. Might be gone most of the day." "Want company?" "Not today." He saw it, just a flicker behind her eyes. Disappointment maybe, or recalculation. "All right," she said. "I'll catch up on reading. Maybe take Maya shopping." "Maya's staying in today. She's got a project she's working on." Vanessa nodded too quickly. "Sure. Maybe we'll bake something later then." Carter gave a short smile and left. But he didn't go far. From the garage, he circled around to the guest house out back where Reed and his two-man security team had spent the night setting up a mobile command station. Cables snaked across the hardwood floor, feeding into thermal monitors, audio interceptors, and video logs. Reed, graying and built like a linebacker who never quite retired, nodded when Carter stepped in. "She's up," Reed said. Her phone pinged a connection to that offshore server at 6:12 a.m. "She's already transmitting?" Carter asked. "She's testing your movements, gauging your patterns." "What about Miles?" Reed turned his monitor. "He just booked a one-way ticket to DC, leaves tomorrow. No luggage, no return flight. I think this thing's coming to a head." Carter stared at the screen. "It's going to end today." Reed crossed his arms. "You sure you're ready for this?" "I'm not the one who needs to be ready." He turned toward the second monitor, where Maya sat at her desk in her room, hoodie pulled tight over her head, typing like her life depended on it. In a way, it did. Back in the main house, Vanessa paced the hallway, speaking softly into her phone, her tone dipped in sugar. "I'm telling you, he's acting different," she whispered. "More guarded." There was a pause. "No, not yet. I need more time. He's still building that neural mesh, and I need the latest framework before we extract." Another pause. "I'll get it. He trusts me." She ended the call and turned only to find Maya standing there. Vanessa forced a smile. "Hey, sweetheart, didn't see you." Maya didn't smile back. "Uncle Carter says I should work in my room today." Vanessa crouched slightly. "Of course. That's smart. You're such a bright girl." Maya's eyes didn't blink. "Are you going to be here when he gets back?" The question was quiet, but it landed like a slap. Of course. Why wouldn't I be?" Vanessa said, standing up straighter. Maya nodded and walked away. In the command trailer, Carter watched the exchange on a split screen. Reed shook his head. "Kid's got more steel than half my team. She's been through worse than most adults ever will," Carter said. "And she's still here, still looking out for me." By mid-afternoon, Carter returned home under the pretense of forgetting his laptop. Vanessa greeted him with open arms, but he sidestepped the hug again, heading straight for the living room. He opened his laptop and pretended to log into work. In truth, everything he did that day, every keystroke, every phone call was part of the trap. At 4:02 p.m., he sent a dummy file labeled NMAI NeuroSync Prototype Final to his desktop and accidentally left it open while stepping away for a call. Vanessa, who was reading on the couch, didn't even hesitate. The moment he disappeared into the kitchen, she sprang into motion, pulling her phone and scanning the screen with a small, flat device Carter hadn't seen before. It was sleek military grade, and it transmitted the file in under 20 seconds. Reed's voice crackled over the earpiece in Carter's ear. She took the bait, sending everything to the Cayman's node. "Copy that," Carter whispered. But the real coup came 15 minutes later. Miles walked in through the back entrance, claiming he had a meeting with Carter. Vanessa, not expecting him so early, panicked just briefly, but it was long enough. "Why are you here?" she hissed. "We need to move up the timeline," Miles said. "He's slipping. You said tomorrow. I don't care. I want it now." Maya, sitting quietly in the hallway nook, recorded every word on her tablet. Carter waited 2 more minutes. Then he stepped back into the room. Miles and Vanessa turned, their smiles pasted on in panic. "Didn't know you had guests," Carter said. Miles cleared his throat. "Just dropping by. Thought we could catch up. I thought you were flying to DC tomorrow." Miles blinked. "Who told you that?" Carter didn't answer. Instead, he walked over to the bar and poured a drink. "To catching up," he said, raising his glass. Vanessa's voice was a little too cheerful. "Actually, Miles was just leaving." "No," Carter said, calm. "He can stay." He gestured to the living room chairs. "Both of you, sit." Something in his tone made them obey. Reed entered seconds later with 2 more men in civilian clothes, each one subtly armed. Vanessa rose immediately. "What is this?" "Please," Carter said, motioning her down again. "We're just having a conversation. A very overdue one." He turned to the large wall monitor and tapped a button. The living room screen lit up showing footage of Vanessa transferring the files, then Miles receiving them, then her whispering on the phone. Vanessa's face went bloodless. Miles stiffened. "You bugged me?" she asked. "No," Carter said. "You bugged me. I just found your bugs before you did." Silence stretched. "You don't understand," Vanessa said, her voice starting to crack. "I didn't mean to fall in love with you. It was supposed to be a job." "But you did fall in love?" he asked. Yes. I think so. Maybe. But I had no choice. You had every choice," Carter cut in. "You walked into my home, slept in my bed, lied to a child." He turned to Miles. "And you after everything I did for you." Miles stood slowly. "Carter, come on, let's not turn this into something it's not." "No?" Carter's voice was sharp now. "Because what it is treason." Reed stepped forward, reading Miles and Vanessa their rights. As they were led out in cuffs, Maya stepped into the room, watching silently. Carter turned to her. "You okay?" Maya nodded. "Are you?" He crouched and pulled her close. "I am now." And as the front door closed behind the betrayers, Carter knew this was only the beginning. Justice had spoken, but trust that would take time to rebuild. The morning after Vanessa and Miles were taken into custody, the mansion stood in an unnatural stillness. It wasn't the silence of calm, but the pause after a storm, when everything feels too quiet to trust. Carter sat at the edge of his bed, still in the clothes he'd slept in. He hadn't turned on his phone, hadn't opened his laptop. The weight of betrayal hung heavy across his shoulders. He pressed a hand over his eyes, exhaling slowly. It wasn't the loss of Vanessa that tore at him. It was the truth of how close he'd come to losing everything. And Maya, if it hadn't been for her. A soft knock came from the hallway. Carter turned. "Come in," he said, voice low. Maya stepped in wearing her oversized hoodie and fuzzy socks. She held a mug in both hands. "I brought you coffee," she said, carefully walking it over. "I didn't know how you like it, so I just made it the way you made it for me last week." Carter took the mug, his fingers brushing hers. "Thank you, sweetheart." She sat at the foot of the bed, swinging her legs gently. "Is it over now?" "I wish I could say yes." He sipped the coffee. It was a little sweet, a little strong, just like her. But taking them down doesn't mean it's done. I have